Hi, I'm Kerry, this is Bookish Adventures in Wellbeing, this is Brennan, Sam's out there, and this is my summer big three. I watched Observing Emma's video where she did this and thought it was a great idea, so here's my own version of our summer big three. So 3 recommendations for summer reading, 3 new releases that I'm looking forward to that are coming out over the summer, and 3 books that I have on my TBR for the coming months. So starting off with recommendations, my first recommendation for you is Heatwave by Victor Jestin. This is translated from the French by Sam Taylor. This is a super short book, but an absolute fever dream. It's about a young boy, Leonard, who's coming to the end of a summer holiday in the south of France at a camping resort. And on his last night, he witnesses another boy dying, and he watches that boy die and then decides to take the body and bury him in the sand. This isn't a spoiler, this is all in the blurb. And then what ensues is the next 24-48 hours, which is just absolutely bonkers, and it captures so much of what it is to be a teenage boy. It captures so much of the heat. I mean, you really feel hot and sticky and uncomfortable reading it. It's got a really strong sense of place. It's set in this camping resort where there are families on their summer vacations. And it's just a really wild time. So the following day, Leonard is obviously coming to terms with this weird thing that he did and saw and what happened, but he's also really distracted by things that teenage boys get distracted by, like girls. So this is a really super summer read if you want to feel that sense of heat and discomfort and yeah, a bit of a fever dream, like I said. That's my first recommendation. The next recommendation that I have for you is The Trouble with Goats and Sheep by Joanna. This is about Grace and Tilly, and they're on their summer holidays, and it's the hottest summer on record when Mrs. Creasy, their neighbour, goes missing. And so overhearing snippets of conversations from the adults around them on their street, it's the 70s, so kids were just sort of like roaming around, hanging out with their neighbours willy-nilly. Overhearing these snippets of conversations from different adults in their lives, they decide to do their own investigation as to what happened to Mrs. Creasy. It's a perfect example of adult themes being explored through the eyes of innocence, in this case children. It's Grace and her friend Tilly. These characters are so well formed in my mind, and it really captures that spirit of, you know, childhood freedom and exploring and adventure that you have with the endless, what feels like an endless summer holiday in your youth. It's a really super read, so I would also recommend The Trouble with Goats and Sheep. And then my third recommendation for a good summer read is The Cloisters by Katy. Now, I don't have a copy of that book because I borrowed it from my library. It's set in New York in the late summer, but it's also dark academia. So I think it makes a perfect kind of bridge between your end of summer reading and going into the autumn. Our main character has just graduated, and she's due to start a residency in a museum when she finds out that they've let her down, and that's fallen through. But at the last minute, she gets swept up by this enigmatic professor who says, come and work on our project, and that's at the Cloisters, which is a branch of this museum. And they're working on this project around a really ancient tarot deck. So it's a dark academia book, so somebody dies, there's loads of really mysterious relationships, loads of really unreliable characters, but the thing that made it a really great summer read for me was the sense of place and setting. So not only does it explore New York in the summer and markets and hanging out in warm evenings, going for cocktails, things like that, but the setting of the Cloisters is really evocative too. So you've got the contrast between these courtyard gardens where the sun is shining through and there's these amazing plants and flowers, and then you've got the contrast of that with the inside of the Cloisters where she's going into these dark lamplit libraries to do her research, and you could almost feel that stepping from the sun into that cool room as you're reading. So I really loved The Cloisters by Katy Hayes. So next up on my big three is new releases that I am looking forward to that are coming out this summer. I'm going to cheat and give you an honourable mention, and that is The Land of Milk and Honey by Zhang. Now, it's already out in hardback, but it's coming out in paperback on the 25th of July, and I just yesterday used my Waterstones points to pre-order that. I loved Zhang's other book, which is called How Much of These Hills is Gold. I thought she did a really clever job in that of flipping what you thought about the characters at the start on its head by the end. I thought it was really cleverly written. The Land of Milk of Honey is a dystopian book set in a future. It involves food. That's essentially kind of all I needed to know. So I'm looking forward to that coming out on the 25th of July in paperback, but it's out in hardback now if you're interested. So here are the books that I am looking forward to that are being released this summer. The first of those is Queen Bee by Juno Dawson, which is out on the 18th of July. Now, this is a prequel to Her Majesty's Royal Coven series. I've read both of her books, Her Majesty's Royal Coven and The Shadow Cabinet so far, and just think that series is fantastic. It's about modern witches who are part of this coven that are a secret part of the kind of UK government, if you like. But it's really incredibly written. The characters are fantastic. It's a wild ride. Like, she is not afraid to kill off your favourite character. But Queen Bee is a prequel. So it's about the founding member of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, and that is meant to be Anne Boleyn. So I'm really excited for that to come out. I think that's going to be wonderful. The next up is The Echoes by Evie Wyld. Evie Wyld wrote The Bass Rock, which I absolutely adored, and so anything that she writes next I'll be really excited for. So that's coming out on the 1st of August. And the third book of my big three anticipated new releases is The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. Again, Matt Haig is a really beloved author of mine. I've read most of his books, and he's got a new book out on the 29th of August, which sounds wonderful. Next up, let me tell you about my summer TBR. Now, this is a bit of a cheat because I don't actually have any kind of like officially summery vibe books on my TBR that I'm planning to read over the next few months, but I do have some vlogs in mind, so I've picked out some books from those. I'm going to give you essentially zero context because I don't want to give too much away, but I thought I would share 3 books with you that I'm planning to read over the next few months. The first is Astonish Me by Maggie Shipstead. Now, Maggie Shipstead wrote The Great Circle, which was shortlisted for the Women's Prize, I think 2 years ago, and it was a fantastic book, really well written. It was quite a big book, but I flew through it. It was a really easy read. She writes characters with such depth and complexity and intrigue. Yeah, so when I was researching books that I could read for a themed vlog that I have coming up and saw that there was one that would be suitable written by Maggie Shipstead, it was a no-brainer for me. So this is set in New York, and our main character is a failed dancer, and her son decides to go into that career, and so she's kind of confronted with her past choices, and she's thrown back into that world of both glamour and devastation, and it's described as an unforgiving world in the blurb. So she's kind of coming to terms and balancing her own past and her own failed ambitions in this area, but also supporting her son. So that's Astonish Me by Maggie Shipstead. The next up is Turnglass by Gareth Rubin. This is a tête bêche, so that means that you read half of the book and then flip it over and then read the other half. So it's set in 2 time periods. The first is 1880s England and the second is 1930s California. It's about a mystery. I don't know much more and I don't want to know much more. I'm just totally sucked in by the gimmick. Let's be honest, but it's I'm hoping this is going to be a really good time. And then the last book that I'm going to share with you in my summer big three is Bad Vibrations by Lucy Leitner. This is a book about a character who goes on a retreat with an enigmatic naturopath yogi who claims that drinking blood can be healing. So essentially it's about wellness and vampires. I don't need to know any more than that. I'm totally sold. One of the activities described in the blurb is screaming hula hoop yoga. I can't tell you how much that appeals to me. So I'm hoping this is going to be silly and a bit of a wild ride. So that's Bad Vibrations by Lucy Leitner. That was my, oh there you go, hello Sam. That was my summer big three. I would love to know if you've made a video like this and want to say thanks to Observing Emma for the inspiration to make this. Let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to, what you're planning on reading over the summer months. Thank you so much for being here.